That let 147,000 people just die. I'm gonna be okay. Imagine what they'll do when they're out of this and I don't have to worry about going to it. Hello everybody, welcome back as ever to Building Blocks, where you program Minecraft mods live on camera and watch as things inevitably go wrong because Minecraft is built like House of Cards. So tonight we are mainly going to be working on possession, but for the first hour at least I'm going to be trying instead to get one last bug that is preventing me from releasing this. And this, you may ask, is the wheelchair mod. This is all of the code for the wheelchairs that we have made for various equipment, and it is going to be released as its own separate 1.16.5 mod so that people can just drop this into their game and play without having to have both various oddities and various equipment installed and all of the other things that come with that. So just a really simple assistive device addition that people can use predominantly for roleplay. Now, there is, currently, we have the cosmetic slot, we have the wheelchair themselves, all of that is working just fine, but generally speaking there's supposed to be a cosmetic mention under this, and for whatever reason, as near as I can tell, everything here works, but for whatever reason, the data isn't generating, and to clarify what that means, it means we're not getting the item tags that say that wheelchairs belong in the cosmetic slot, and as near as I can tell, we're also not getting the recipes in here, so if I just grab a stick and some slab, say some oak slab, am I gonna see a wheel in here? I am not. No, I should be able to craft a wheel just like this, but currently nothing. So there is clearly a problem happening here. I should very well be able to craft all of that and it should just appear, but it's not. And I'm pretty sure it includes if we try to use the special recipes. So let's see, let's grab ourselves a couple of warped wheels, a crimson slab, and some, what's a nice complementary color for these things, whether blue and red, green, I guess. So let's see, slab there, wool up there, warped wheel, and warped wheel, nothing. We should get a fully customized wheelchair here, but we're just currently getting nothing, because it doesn't, it's not registering the data, which includes registering that the special recipe is accessible. So, yeah, there is that. Hopefully we can figure this out in the very near future, and it will not take the entire hour. Probably not, knowing Minecraft, but who knows? Oh. Yes, and my blushy front for the day is a little keyed out, but you know, she is 100% here. This is Sunny, the Bulbasaur from Build-A-Bear. He's very comfy, very cuddly. Ooh. I like to think of her as being the university child of my little Bulbasaur family. So let's see. All that we need to do is get the data to generate. That is literally the one thing that we need to do. After that, the special recipe we already made for various equipment is fine. The recipe generation for various equipment is also fine. So it should all be perfectly good as long as we can get the data to actually generate at all. Generally in here, then we could get it working. Now in theory, I could just pre-make all of the data and just stick it in here in its own little thing, and it would be fine. But if I ever intend to expand the wheelchairs mod, so for instance include crutches and other things, then I have to go through and add all of those details as well every single time. So being able to auto-generate it is just very nice. It also I would need to make a recipe for every single wheel, and then for every single wheelchair, and that is already a lot. So, yeah. So, let's see. Currently, gathering data happens here. We register this function to the bus, and it should automatically add our things in, but clearly it's not, because otherwise we would have the item tags and the recipes. So, let's have ourselves out here. Actually, we can do this even easier, probably. We can just add a breakpoint. So we just add that, and let's see, where's my debug? There's my debug. Okay. Yep, that's fine. So running this in debug mode, it should go through. Actually, we should be running this in data, shouldn't we? Yeah, there we go. Well, I should add a channel point reward for engaging the hat. Because there is actually a noise player in here, so... Okay, so there's... It is reaching that. Okay, that's a good sign. It is actually getting here. Hasn't been cancelled, has an existing file helper, has a data generator, all good. So why are we not seeing this get into here? Is it actually adding the thing, but then we're actually not extending the right function? Because as I discovered, this is using the latest, pretty much, version of Forge, as well as the latest version of Curios and such. And Forge did this extremely stupid thing. Like, unequivocally, very stupid thing. And, okay, how do I explain this? We've been working with Minecraft code. Okay, when you get your Minecraft code, it is what's called obfuscated, which is to say they've run it through a World War II code engine, effectively, so that you have no idea what anything is or what it's doing. So if somebody tries to crack it open, they have to first de-obfuscate it to translate it into something that's actually human readable as it was before Mojang shipped it. That requires what's called a de-obfuscation map, or de-obf map. And if you change that map, it changes what comes out when you translate the code. Forge, for whatever godforsaken reason, decided to change some of, in fact, many of, the most integral and important names in the de-obfuscation map. To the point that the biped model, for instance, the thing that players, zombies, skeletons, piglins, everything, comes out of, no longer resembles what it was in the actual stuff that we were working on a couple of weeks ago. So instead of biped leg right, it's now right leg, for instance. And I know that doesn't sound like much, but it breaks a ton of stuff, and it was a it was basically a day of work just to get everything renamed properly. There are other ways to figure that, to have that be fixed up automatically, but I had neither the time nor the capacity to do them. The next thing that they did in terms of renaming stuff is the player model has additional model renderers, additional cuboids to add cosmetic layers around every limb, every single limb. So you had biped head wear, you had biped leg right wear, so on and so forth. Those are now named after clothing items. So yeah, there's jacket now, and it's just like, why? This was standard for like most of a decade. Why did you change this? Ay. But I got through that, and I eventually managed to figure out what they'd done to the Gradle, so I could get that working and get Curios imported again. And as far as I know, the mixing works here, but the mixing is entirely dependent upon us actually having things in the cosmetic slot, so I can't know for certain if that's working until I get things working with the data, that kind of thing. But that would not take very long to fix, hopefully. I'm still not 100% certain how I even fixed the Gradle, but yeah. But okay. So, let's add another breakpoint here, and let's step forwards. Okay, we did get into here, so it is generating for the actual, it is generating inside of that. What is the value that determines, out of curiosity? This.config.server. Okay then, fine. So the config, yep, client, dev, yep, good, right. So, then we must be creating a new item tags thing here, so it should logically be generating. Except that for whatever reason, we click forward, the whole thing finishes, and we don't see any reference to wheelchair in here. Like, somewhere in this listing we should see wheelchairs, but we don't see anything, which is very odd. Which suggests to me that we're in a function that has since been renamed. Possibly. It's really hard to know, but if we click through there, add provider still works fine, still adds it to the providers list, okay, so that should be fine. So then it's probably in the item tags themselves, somewhere here, does this get called add tags, or is it just run? Nope, it is in fact still add tags. Okay. Let's add a sys out in here. Well, we have a sys out in here, it's just never run. Generating item tags, we should see that in the log, but we don't, so why not? This is the question. Everything there, yeah, that looks fine. Copy, get path, get name, yeah, all of this looks identical in fact to what we already have. But obviously it's not, or else we would have this printed out in our sysout, and everything here would be perfectly fine. So what's going wrong? NQIMC is the thing that adds our one cosmetic slot. That's clearly working because we have a cosmetic slot. By default, Curio doesn't add any slots at all. So what is it? This is kind of fascinating. Oh, right, yeah, I see. You're all trying to tell me that I lit. Sorry. God, I thought it was mildly quiet today. There you go, everybody. And we're not accidentally in subscriber mode again. Good, good. Let's just check over the log. Do we see generating item tags? It should be fairly obvious. We see it absolutely nowhere, as near as I can tell here. Yeah, nowhere. I'm aware this is literally like looking at, I have reverb? Why do I have reverb? What do you mean by reverb exactly? You like my hat? Oh, thank you. Doubled audio? How have I doubled audio? Is that any better? Do let me know. I've just been explaining all of the things that Forge has been doing terribly. Entirely like that. Okay, weirdness indeed. I don't have a no. Nope, it's not there apparently. Hang on. That all looks fine. No delay in my audio. That looks all good. I haven't changed anything with XSplit, so it's doing it entirely of its own volition. Also, I can't hear it, so you're gonna have to tell me if it stops. How has it gotten worse? What do you mean it's gotten worse? Any better now? Sounds like there's many of me in a chorus. Huh. Fascinating. Okay, well, here's one possibility. Does that make it work any better? I've literally just muted my microphone in XSplit. This was not the bug I intended to find, but oh well. Fixed? What? What? Are you kidding me that that's actually worked? Can you seriously only hear one of me now? Oh dear God. Okay, this is just the kind of thing we do on the stream apparently, is inexplicable bugs, because according to XSplit, I've just muted my microphone entirely. So, logically, you should not be able to hear me whatsoever. Now I'm curious if I was visible, if I was audible during the intro, and that should not have been the case. Ugh. Anyways, have I at least been understandable for the past half hour? Real quick question. Like, please tell me you at least could understand me. Okay. So it didn't render me completely incomprehensible, that's the word. Okay, so let's see. Looking for this. We are seeing auto-subscribing the tile entities. Yes. Attempt to inject that into curios. Yep, all good. Blocks item tags auto-subscribed. Yes. Inject subscribers for wheelchairs. Yep, so we should be in here. We just don't see anything in here. For whatever reason. Is there a problem here in the super? Doesn't look like it. Get path. Is that a thing we have down here? I don't see a get path. I wonder if that's the problem. Data, namespace, tags, items, path. No, that should be fine. Hey, let's bring up wheelchairs. Oh, well, let's bring up various equipment for a hot second here. Just as a comparison. Yeah, my computer has not been doing great the past few days and such. So as a general recap, in Forge's latest update, they changed the tags for every model part. Why would they do that? Good question! There is genuinely no good reason for it. None whatsoever. Okay, let's just create ourselves a package in here on the off chance that a package for data not existing here already is the reason why it's not generating data. Like, it makes absolutely no sense. But yeah, here we are. Left sleeve, left pants, right pants, jacket, cloak, ear. No sense whatsoever. But they did it. They clearly did it. Go to the biped model. Head, hat. For some reason. Body, right arm, right. It's all of it got changed around, and I have honestly no good explanation for why. Okay, so it wasn't just that we had one there. Oh, we are also missing a mixing list in here, I note. Just irrelevant to what we're currently working on. You never know, any small error might have caused it. And I'm pretty sure basically all of the mixing we have in here is client side. So let's see, biped, entity, player renderer, biped armor layer, do not need that one, and don't need those ones either. Fixes that one thing. Okay, is there anything in the MC meta here that might explain what's going on? That says example mod. That theoretically could be it. Yeah, there is genuinely no good reason for doing that. But apparently they did. It's very strange. Very strange indeed. Okay, let's compare the mod TOML. Not seeing anything in here related to data. Yeah, I don't think that's related. Like, there's generally not really any majorly good reason to change names in anything, especially if it's an old project. There are some good reasons. For instance, we used to say blacklist and whitelist. That is more commonly today done as allow list and deny list, because it's a very small thing, I know, but it had the implication that black was bad. And that's a really bad thing to say in a programming classroom. So, naturally, more recently we've been trying to change that over to allow list and deny list. There was also a thing in computer programming of referring to a main system and its subsidiary systems as the master and the slave, which is also a bad thing to say in a programming classroom. So now we tend to say parent and child and such. Primary, secondary, there's ample alternatives there. But generally speaking, things like biped left leg is a very good way. It's a very clear naming scheme kind of thing, because you know exactly what it refers to, which part and what subset of that is. A hierarchical kind of name like that is a fairly common naming convention. And they've kind of just given up on that, apparently, as near as I can tell. Now, granted, this is not remotely the worst thing in Minecraft. Because, of course, there is the horse model. Now, the modern horse model is not so bad, although why in God's name these legs are numbered instead of identified, I don't know. The original horse model was made by a modder called Dr. Zark for, I think his mod? I don't know that pronouncing off the top of my head. Mo Creatures. And it was a good model. But in hindsight, Dr. Zark had very little idea of what the modding system of Minecraft could do, because every single cuboid in the model was unparented. And what that means is that basically they didn't glue anything together, so every single piece had to be animated individually every single time it moved. For every single horse it had to render. And it was just... oh, that was god-awful. Hey. Also, I think even today, the saddle is a part of the horse texture, which means A, it is repeated for every single texture of the horse. Every single breed of horse has the saddle in its texture, rather than just having it be a render layer that has its own specific texture, so if you change that one saddle texture, you change it for all horses. But because that is part of the model, that is also used by anything that extends or borrows from the horse model, including things like donkeys and mules. It's very strange. I would not have called that good architecture, but oh well, it's what I have to deal with. Okay, so we've just changed the MC meta. Maybe that will help us here. Maybe that gets it running. Let's find out. I doubt it, but who knows. What we're looking for is wheelchairs to just, like, pop up somewhere near the bottom here. Forge, Minecraft, whole ton of Minecraft, nothing related to our actual thing here. Very strange. Programmer's having a really good idea, but half-butting it, no, really? Okay. I'll grant you the standard epithet when it comes to, like, the axiom when it comes to programming is work smart, not hard, meaning what is the smallest thing you can do to get a thing working intended. But when you're dealing with foundational systems, when you're dealing with the thing your game is built on, because Minecraft is its own game engine, you want to make sure that things are as clear, as concise, as efficient as possible. Which means you can't half-butt it, unfortunately. It's why there is so much work done in various oddities to make sure things can theoretically be made to do whatever the hell I want them to do. Like, that's what happens when you're building foundational systems. Which is also the place you never want to change the name of anything. Because so many things will rely on that as a matter of course. So when you rename the parts of the biped model in a game where the majority of entities that you are dealing with are bipeds, including the player. If what the mantra is, if it ain't broken, it's not got enough features yet. I mean, no, that's just what happens with me. That's called feature creep, or scope creep. Because I tend to really enjoy emergent gameplay, so I tend to just have something and then throw pieces into it until something happens. Until the stew changes color. Okay, let's add a sys out here and make sure this actually gets instantiated. Meaning that we're fairly certain it does actually get added to the list. Engineers have that problem too, and I feel bad for engineers quite often, because engineers are really smart people. Okay, it does get instantiated, it just does not get cold after that, it would seem. Engineers are very smart people. They're the kind of people that make Mousetrap look like tic-tac-toe, effectively. Like, they're so good at it, and a lot of my family had come from relatively engineering kind of backgrounds, including, I guess, to a certain extent me, because we've all seen me play Space Engineers in Minecraft. In fact, there's like one great story I love from one Christmas, which I guess is like decently viable right now, which is that we got around to my grandparents' house, and we were playing Jenga. Do you know what happens when you're playing Jenga with a bunch of people who have engineering backgrounds? The answer is we finished the Jenga. We got every single level of the Jenga onto one part, and it still hadn't fallen over. None of us had toppled it. So, given that there was no, like, winner of that Jenga, we just kept going in reverse. So we reassembled the Jenga from every layer having one part. And we still didn't topple it over, so it's just start going backwards again. But yeah, like, the trouble that engineers tend to have is the demands put upon them by people who are not engineers. So they'll build a thing for a specific thing with a specific purpose, which requires specific physical forces, specific materials, specific construction methods, that kind of thing. And then somebody above board will not listen to that idea and will say, actually, could you, like, turn it this ways? Or could you make it out of this, because that's really shiny and that'll really sell on the promotional images or something. Or could you make it move much faster? That kind of thing. Or carry much more weight. And then they have to try and contort their beautiful clockwork engine into something else. And it's like, oh, you wonder why there are problems with like, structural engineering especially. Okay, so why do we not get cold? This means we are adding it to the list. This means it's not getting cold. Why not? Moreover, why does it seem to be getting cold out of the bottom? That's a little weird. I would expect that it would be cold up here. Let's see, where's holder lookups applied? Where does that come? Where does that get posted? Presumably that gets called somewhere in after add tags. Couldn't save tags, couldn't define tags. We have no such argument problems, so it's not that. Yeah, protecting for abstract void add tags looks fine. Where's the run get called? Data generator. Okay, good. Starting provider. All providers took. Finished after bleh seconds or milliseconds. Rather. I'm not seeing holder lookups in here so far. The day your engineer got an electric car and realized he could legally modify it was the day the UK government realized the regulations weren't specific enough. You're not wrong. I'm not seeing where holder lookups gets called. I wonder if there's just generally a problem with the run data config here. Could that be it? Seems unlikely, but you never know. That looks fine. Ended up putting a toaster in the glove box. I mean, that's one way to light your cigarette. Yeah, well, that looks fine to me, as near as I can tell. Let me see. I've got generated resources inside here, so let's just, for the moment, clone those over and see what happens, because I'm a little curious. That's not quite where that wants to be. Courier.tags.items. So theoretically, that being there should mean that our wheelchairs become cosmetics. Should being the operative word. There we go. Okay, right there. Oh, but they're also called Vira QP rather than wheelchairs. There we go. Okay. So if we run that, we can at least see if this will actually end up working, even if we're not able to generate them currently. I have a horrible feeling that a toaster in a glove box would attract mice. If there's one thing I've learned living in England, it's that if you leave a car in a position for long enough, it'll attract mice anyways. So... to a mouse, a cat, to like a mouse or a rat, a car is just a really extremely sturdy, mobile, like tube course. That's it. Okay. I'm not seeing those listed as cosmetics just yet. Let me quickly refresh that instead, in case you didn't get the message. Okay, nope. Did I put it under the wrong directory, I guess is the next question. I did! That needs to be under its own thing rather than wheelchair. Okay. Refactor, rename. There. And then we'll add a new package for actually wheelchairs. Which we can probably just call recipes. Because we're gonna need recipes. Oh boy. Let me see. Let's go with the warped wheel and the warped wheelchair. There we go. We got two things in there. We got that there. That should mean that at the very least, we know some degree of what's going on here. Forge is always a massive pain in the neck to work with, because barely anything is documented well. Like, generally speaking, if I need to figure out how to do something with Forge, asking the Forge devs is the last thing I'll do because they're extremely unpleasant. Blood from a stone barely covers it with the Forge devs all the time. What I will generally try to do is just find another mod that's doing more or less the thing I need to do in a comparable version, and just reference that because it's so much easier. In case it isn't obvious, foxes aren't players. Oh. But I've been here since like 2011. Oh. Rude. Okay, now we've got it working there. It should also mean we actually can get a recipe for the warped wheel, for which I will need, let's see, warped slabs. Is that not correct? I could have sworn that was correct. Let's see. Nope, did not recognize that there is a recipe there for that, apparently. Oh lordy, so much, so much. Let me see, if I check what the recipe is here for the warped wheel. It is warped slabs and a stick, in exactly the pattern I just named. Ah, but it is marked as the wrong thing, so it doesn't actually reference an item that exists. So there's that problem. Everything else appears to be fine. Nope, still doesn't understand that. But that might just be because we need to reboot. But okay, as long as we've got the wheelchair actually registering as a cosmetic, we can actually try rendering it and see what goes on with the mixin. Because if the mixin is broken, then it's gonna be a bit more struggle to get it working. Because that's Gradle work, and the Gradle is, oh boy, it has so many comments, and most of them are from like 18 versions ago. Hello, we have a thing going on in here. What's happening? I just saw an error. Wheelchairs block states wheelchairs wheelchair block.json. Missing model. Interesting. We didn't have that issue before, and it was rendering just fine. Then it also technically renders it transparently, so that's not too surprising, come to think of it. Yep, looks just fine to me. Okay, there's our warped wheel. Hurrah! Does that give us the specials? It should. That's odd. Okay, that does not give us that. We shouldn't be. We shouldn't be able to combine them, but apparently it thinks we can. That's interesting. Okay, yeah, let's, before I forget, let's actually put the wheelchair on and see what it looks like. Okay. The good news, it is rendering the wheelchair. Oh, it's even giving us the step up, that's nice. And also it is actually animating the wheels. Good. That part, so far so good. Bad news, it isn't rendering our legs in the sitting position, which means the mix-in isn't working. Is that because I commented out a whole ton of stuff to make sure this would work properly? Let's find out. Doesn't seem to be the case. So we just need to check if this is running effectively. That should be fairly straightforward. But hey, it's close. I just had to manually put the recipes in for everything, but you know, it's close. Lordy. Yeah, I wonder why we can combine the wheels then. That's odd. That's very odd. You thought Roblox Lua was difficult? Lua is a completely different coding language, to my knowledge. But boy, getting Minecraft to actually function is, oi. Okay, yes, let's actually. So we get the stack handler. We go through, check if anything is a wheelchair. anything visible, to be specific, is a wheelchair, then it should return true. Okay. This should probably be static, honestly, looking at it. Okay, checking player for visible wheelchair. There. Oh yes, this is a mod for different assistive devices. They are intended to be 95% cosmetic, which is to say that they should have extremely minimal actual gameplay functions. I'm never going to make it a situation with this mod that you can render a player disabled even if it's you, and then having the assisted device, like, negates that or something. It's always just going to be a matter of you can always do exactly what everyone else can do, you just look differently doing it, effectively. Like, my view on the matter here is that you shouldn't have to disable a player in order to able a player. Okay, the mix-in, in fact, isn't running, because otherwise we would be seeing actual spam down here saying that that's happening. So we know what the problem there is. Also, my auto jump might be on. Let's have a look. Oh, yep, there we go. Let's get rid of that. Okay, yes, the step has decided it suddenly doesn't want to work. Okay, well, we'll add that to the to-do list. Okay, so to do, we need to fix data generation not being called, and fix rendering mix-in not running. Okay, it's 2 bugs. 2 bugs with probably very simple problems related to them. Let's see, did my mix-ins here actually target the right thing? To be clear, yes, looks fine. So those should be good. Let's grab the special recipes in here. It should be under dynamic. Wheelchair, right there. The dynamic recipes are exceedingly simple. They literally just point at a specific kind of special recipe. That is all that they do. And then the special recipe is effectively how recipes used to work. Should we have a look at them? Wheelchair recipe, there we are. Just going through all of the slots and identifying what things are in there, and then from that divining what the output would be. That's how recipes used to work for everything. They changed Mojang changed it over to being a JSON data kind of system because it was much easier to auto-generate things. It was much easier to add new things, to change things, allow actual different servers to have different recipes, that kind of thing, at the cost of losing a lot of the calculations you could have with the old custom ones. So they kind of kept them in. Dyeing, for instance, actually like painting your items and stuff, is still a custom recipe. Because you just can't do that with JSON data. The number of permutations is so massive. You just swamp everyone's computer trying to calculate all of the different recipes for that. Okay. Still didn't look right. We do have the cosmetic. Good. Can we make a customized chair? Yes, we can. Okay. Good. Now that we've actually told it what it is, then yes, we can. That gets us a green one with should be warped wheels. It should be telling us that. So that's a slight problem. Let's check it out. No tag, as near as I can see. F3 and H. 2 tags. Look at the cosmetic. Okay. data get entity at e type equals item. Limit equals 1 because it doesn't care otherwise. Okay, does read as having warped wheels. It's supposed to add that actually in the information, but it might just not have the right value, the right name for that function now. Okay, let's try rendering that. Okay, that is warped with crimson seats and green chair. Okay, so item more or less works fine. Good to see. Let's see, item wheelchair. Should have an add information step here. There you are. Is that misnamed? Yes it is, because nothing is actually calling it. Let's have a look what they renamed that to. And let's see, that takes a iText component list, or iTooltip flag. That'll be much fine. Append hover text is what they've renamed that to. Add information has become append hover text. Okay. Oh yes, and whether it is shiny from being enchanted is now is foil, instead of just is enchanted. Okay. Right. Fine. At some point, it's probably worth figuring out a percentile comparison of how much of these streams is me fighting Mojang's code for vanilla Minecraft, or fighting Forge's code. Ay. Unfortunately, Forge are one of the ones that write the deobfuscation map, so you kind of have to care. Fabric might be better in that regard. I have zero experience working with the Fabric mod loader, but I've not heard great things about the community on that one, so just gonna not. Okay, well we have some lang problems, I see, but we can figure that out real easily. We don't even need to close for that. Yes, we're missing some lang, but that's fine, because it should be over here. There we go. Just refresh that. Refresh that. F3 and T to reload your resource pack, if you're wondering. And now it should be readable. Or not, because I didn't change the name of it, did I? Still very QB. Very handy indeed to just be able to quickly reload a resource pack when you're doing stuff like that. There we go. Right, oak wheel, left, oak wheel. Conversely, right, warped wheel, left, warped wheel. We can in fact have mismatched wheels if we so desire. I built these specifically so that people could customize them. And we turn off the advanced tooltips. Yep. Very good. Okay. It's one less thing to worry about. Okay, I need to go take my break, and then after that, taking my break because staring at code for 3 hours straight is very bad for your eyes, even if I do have the dark mode on here, just to make things a little easier on them. And when we come back, we will try and figure out if... I don't think I can fix mix-in on my own. I'd have to talk to the Forge devs for that, because again, it is a Gradle problem and it would be painful. But we might be able to get a solution for the data generation. So there's that. And then the mix-in shouldn't take too long of a time. But otherwise, we will then move on to working back on possession with various oddities, allowing you to personally pilot any mob you like in the entire game, pretty much. Even modded ones, if you should so will it. But okay, so either way, I'll be back in about 10 minutes. See you. Rusty, can anybody hear me right now? Just a quick question. You shouldn't be able to, but apparently we're not playing by those rules tonight. Ah, great. Well, I shall try not to be too crinkly and whatnot. I'll, like, unwrap this baby belt. Yeah. X-Split, what are you doing? You can hear snacks? Yes, you can hear me unwrapping a baby bell, that is it. Free ASMR. For higher quality ASMR, subscribe to Patreon at patreon.com/live. What I'm the sensation that if by some unknown miracle I get enough money to actually get a machine, it will still have this exact problem. Randomly, for no reason whatsoever. It's very funny that I'm orange in here. I got to Twitch. You're actually still green. No, that's I know what's doing that. Hang on. That's because I have a audio handler that is supposed to manage like computer versus voice audio in different scenes of XSplit, but apparently isn't. Who knows why? Okay. This problem with the data generators is thus far perplexing even the Forge devs, because it shouldn't be doing this, it should be working just fine. So let me see if we... Let's see, data generator.run. Here we have it. Starting provider. Data provider.run, which is the main thing that we have up here that calls for that from the tags provider. Yep, right there. Run, which should mean that it runs through our item tags and whatnot other things. Let's get a breakpoint there. Let's get a breakpoint in the tags provider. You have a guess at what causes the video/audio desync now? Maybe. Who knows at this point? Breakpoint there. Is there a breakpoint there? It looks like there should be, but apparently not. Let's see. And one here. There you are. Okay. So, if we run in debug, we can step through that and hopefully see what is going on. Hopefully. That's it, getting all of the data that it needs to run through. Okay. On gather data events, so we're coming through happily there. And we are adding our item tags. Yep, item tags instantiated. And it just ended. We never got to the run part. That's interesting. Somehow, we skipped this entire thing. So it never generated anything, apparently. Huh. That's curious. Okay, if we comment out our providers, is that actually going to run through the whole way? Because yeah, it should be saying like running providers and then finished in X milliseconds kind of thing at the end there. But apparently, we've prevented the entire data generator from running somehow. Yep, just done. No error messages whatsoever. Huh. That's fascinating. That makes no sense at all. And it's waiting a bit, and then it terminates. Ooh. Yeah, very interesting actually. alert Forge devs to that one. This is a fascinating thing. It just terminates right after the lookups. Huh, what could even do that? Oh, we've got a mystery. We've got a mystery, everybody. No exceptions, just terminates. Is that just because it doesn't recognize anything being there? Create standard generator if mod stock contains Minecraft or mods is empty. Which part is mods? Option set values of mod, which is a list of strings, apparently. This is fascinating. This is incredibly broken in ways that make no sense whatsoever. Wait, initializing data gatherer for mods example mod. Hello, we might have something here. Why do we see example mod in here? Oh, could this be the thing? Nothing there. The word example doesn't appear in here, but it's still finding them. Okay. List of mods, how may I allowed here determined by the individual mod loader. Is it literally that I just put wheelchairs there? I wonder. Let's find out. Oh, there's an immediate problem. Missing mods list. Okay. Well, we definitely caused something there. A list of mods. And that is a list right there, but display name, version number, all of that is fine as near as I can tell. Where is it finding? Found mod coordinates from lists, bleh. That's from the mod's TOML. Why is it saying example mod? Where could it be saying example mod still? No, it's not the properties. It won't be the build grain. Nothing in here should be example. Nope. That is a... Okay, I just received the thing of, is your mod ID present in the data run config? That is a good question. It should be. But maybe not. Let's have a look. Example mod, anywhere in these arguments. Mod, example mod, right there. Okay. You'd think they might have updated that a little bit, but you know, apply that. Is example mod in here as well? Example mod is the thing that is just there when you first actually unpack the Forged workspace. It used to be, that wasn't necessary, but maybe that's the problem. Oh, did I not revert this? I thought I did. What happened? Missing mods list. Did I not just revert that? Right there. Does that not... That's exactly what it should be. I might not have refreshed the workspace though, that could be it. Sometimes, especially when you're dealing with resources, it does that. Initial data gatherer for mods. Okay. Yes! Okay! Wrong name, but okay! Wheelchairs, item tags, finished. Okay, right. That's good. Let's see if it actually generated anything. It did! We have tags. We have recipes. More recipes than I created otherwise. Yes, good. Alright. Hooray. I think that's good. So, yeah, so we still need to figure out what's causing the mix-in not to work, but that's a whole other can of worms. But generation. Hooray! Yes. Good, right. Hurdles you have to go for. Example mod probably shouldn't be there, because it doesn't even generate any data. It doesn't even have any concept of a data generator. But ideally, you should just be selecting those anyways from the mods terminal. Who am I to talk? I've only been at this for like a decade. Have I been at this for a decade? There's one really easy way for me to find out, I guess. Is just check when the files were created for... I'm sure people know what I'm about to refer to, but yeah. Oh boy. At least 5 years is what I'm seeing here. 6 years, 7 years, a while, somewhere in the vicinity of 7 years. Now that wasn't my first project, but it is fairly close to the first one that got anywhere, even if it was never actually released. But okay, Faith and Begora, we got it going. And now I can take out the sysouts in here that are now just gonna be spam. I guess feel like I could change that from being cosmetic to being wheelchair, but... Okay, so how are we getting... We literally various equipment doesn't exist in here. But apparently, we got various equipment crafting recipes. Presumably that's because, yep, I hard-coded that in. There. Fixes that up. Everything else refers to the mod info, reference data, so it should be perfectly fine, and it would have ended up in some other place. Looks good. Is there any other syshats here? I don't think so. I think we're good. Yeah, I don't think I put them anywhere else. All fine and grand. Just run that one more time, make sure. Okay, get rid of mods, wheelchairs. Folder lookup supplies. somewhere up here we should see. This is for registries for the most part. Objects with annotations, yes. Want to subscribe, good. Provider, wheelchairs, item tags, and wheelchairs crafting recipes. All good. Refresh that, go to there, and run the client, and now all of those recipes should work. And should actually exist, is the next thing, I guess. Not just the ones we put in the data map. Yeah, back in the day, that project, for anybody who hasn't been watching me for 7 years, I guess, I think I last touched that like 3 years ago. That project was called Yolk Dwarves. Influences aside, with that one, what it effectively meant, like, boils down to was you were able to have a whole ton of entities running around, and you got to decide how they operated. So you could decide where they slept, where they worked, what they worked on, that kind of thing. And in its later stages, it also moved on to that's good. It also moved on to military control. So you could have them you could have a whole ton of them into different units, and those units could be in formation, and what those units did could then be controlled as well. And yeah, suffice it to say, it was very much feature creep. Okay, so if I grab this, we should see, yes, oak wheel, good, grand and good. So let's yep, got those. I got the one for that, but yep, diddle-dum, good. You crafting recipes, really? Already? Yep, there we go. Good. Nice. So let's just run recipe give dev wheelchairs. Yep, there you go. Just all the recipes for that. Apparently I'm not allowed to use that. Okay, fine. There we go, so there's all of our recipes on the top right. So now we can just check wheel in here. We've got all of our wheels, all of our wheelchairs, that's all of our default generic ones. These recipes exist so that when you craft a wheel, you automatically know how to make a wheelchair. You don't have to know what the special recipe is that allows you to have whatever color and whatever combination you like. I guess that step takes a little bit of figuring out if you want to fully customize your wheelchair, but it's fine. Okay, so our only problem now is that the mixin isn't working to make me actually be in the sitting position. The rest of this works perfectly, but it's kind of an important feature that these legs be in the proper orientations and such. It's kind of an important feature to be sitting in a chair rather than this. So, yeah. Also, apparently I can't right-click on this anymore. The block should allow me to right-click. So let's just wheelchair block equipment. Just get that in there. Okay. But joy upon joys, that is like 97-ish, 98%-ish functioning. We just have one last bug, which will require me talking to the mix-in devs, who are effectively a subset of the Forge devs, so that'll be fun. I'm sure. Who knows? How well that'll go. Probably me, had to guess. But yeah. Okay, so let me quickly chuck that onto the GitHub. If you're not familiar, GitHub is kind of the sort of like the primary preeminent kind of like online storage space for code, so that you can directly reference every single line of it, and people can do whatever they will with it. Build a Gradle in there as well. Okay. Fixed data generation. Bleh. Commits. Yep. So that is visible on my GitHub, so you can actually just go check it all out if you want to dive through the code. I like to put my mods onto GitHub just so people can actually reference it, because there are so many occasions when I'm coding stuff that I will deliberately just go through CurseForge looking for something that does sort of the same thing and check if the source is available. And it makes it so much easier to develop things with how obtuse everything is in Forge. So it's nice to give back to the thing that I'm using. Anyways, let me just actually bring up the website for that, just so you can see it. So here we are. So this is github.com/lyinginbedmon/wheelchairs, or you can just go to github.com/lyinginbedmon to see all of the things that I've been up to. Unsurprisingly, it's 100% commits. I've done heck all else, but there we are. We've got wheelchairs, just a campfire for 112. We have various equipment and various oddities, my two kind of major projects right there. So, yay. Apparently I have one follower. Oh well. But you can see also my Patreon over here, and your funding at patreon.com/lying allows me to actually do all of this. So, yeah. Go check that out, I guess. Right. Let's switch over to various oddities and see what else we can get going. Yeah, I don't know why you guys can hear everything, despite the fact that I've very plainly told XSplit not to be broadcasting anything, so I don't know how it's receiving any kind of audio. Like, my camera's not giving it audio. It's only got its main system audio, which is the actual audio line here. What else is giving this thing audio? I don't know, because it's not showing up on my levels. No sense. No sense at all. Very weird. Quick explanation of what's been going on here. I just need to actually... I updated the Forge in this. I think. It's a little nebulous, because there's a lot more here than there was for wheelchairs. But I updated the Forge in this to effectively try to tackle the Log4j exploit that was reported widely quite recently. And if you look through my repos, you'll notice that every mod I have has a logger, which is just a thing of like reporting here is what the mod is doing, which is very useful for debugging. If somebody has a crash report, they can go into the config to verbose logs in my configure options, and then it'll just give it more detail for me to know what's happening when something goes wrong. But people noticed that the Log4j code allows you to... The exact description of the bug is run unchecked code via having a message printed in the log. An easier description of that to say would be you put a command into like a text message, like in the chat, for instance. The chat log gets logged to the server's console. Then the server just reads it as something it should do. But you don't actually have to have any kind of operator values. You don't have to be an admin, that kind of thing. So you could just do literally anything. And there was some indication that you could even do this without actually being whitelisted on the server. A private server could theoretically be vulnerable to it as well. So I had to update everything. Vulnerability. I kind of depend upon this mod's popularity. I'd prefer it not be a massive gaping security hole. So I updated the Forge in it, I think. Obviously, updating both various oddities and various equipment would take a lot more time than just wheelchairs, which are basically a one-item thing. Still can't believe this wasn't caught before now. It's honestly, really stupid and ridiculous errors are the least commonly caught ones. For the simple reason that after a certain point of staring at code, it sort of becomes a blur to you. Like, you don't notice most of the things that are wrong with it. So you end up making extremely stupid mistakes. That's why programmers tend to work in groups, so that they can catch each other's errors because they haven't been staring at the same code for 5 hours in a day. So it is genuinely a lot of those. Like, the vast majority of bug reports I get are from, I forgot to check for a null, or I forgot to, like, run a function, or I didn't remove a sysout somewhere, that kind of things. Like, they're very small, and they're very stupid. But input sanitization is an extremely important thing in programming, and it is an extremely common thing that people forget at some stage, so I can't blame them too much. And of course, it's in the best interests of the, like, exploiter, the hacker or whatever, to not have those bugs be visible, because if they're exposed, then they're fixed quite quickly. And to my knowledge, they have been. That's not quite just yet. Okay, so let's see, depossess. There's me. There's the creeper I was just possessing. There are still some bugs here, but as you can see there, I was 100% visible as being this creeper. I was able to move around, look around. The creeper, we didn't quite see it there because I didn't have the bounding boxes on and it was invisible, but it was nonetheless actually looking where I was looking. And our idea right now is we're trying to we got it working, but it was kind of sluggish. We're trying to make it so that there's minimal latency. And what I'm trying to do at the moment is convince the player that it's riding the creeper and the creeper that the player is riding it, and then also that it should actually be rideable and controllable by the player riding it. So effectively you mount the creeper. Because when you're riding on a horse, there's no latency, and that's really helpful, because if there's latency, if you're sluggish, if you're moving around and you're slower, or you're moving around and it takes like a split second for you to actually start moving, then it's kind of hard to get into combat, because suddenly everybody's moving much faster than you are. That kind of thing. It adds up, essentially. But otherwise, here's the rest of our world. Here's the work-in-progress textures for wargs, these really big rideable doggos that can also have like saddlebags, because of course they can. Look at them. We don't have every texture, but Sweden, or building bridges, I think currently Sweden in my Discord, but also known as building bridges, has been working very hard on all of these. Admittedly, they got overwhelmed. I don't blame them. But they did some really great work. I'm loving a lot of these. I can probably do the majority of the rest of them myself. Theoretically, I could also simplify the model that these are on, but then we'd have to start over from scratch, that kind of thing. These guys also have breeds, by the way. So they can have different fur colors, a variety of fur colors, in fact, and they also have genetics, so they can look distinct. Like, none of these guys has a lolling tail, or a floppy ear, that kind of thing, or a shorter snoot. All of which are things that these guys can have. Like, here we go. Here's just a different breed. They're lovely. They're somewhat on the back burner while I process possession, but nonetheless, they're looking good. We got some goblins over here. Oh wow, that's complicated. It's treated like actual genetics, so there is Punnett squares involved. But after, like, you get wolves to be tamed by goblins, and that creates wargs, which are these guys. They're beefier and tougher than regular wolves, and with them you get the actual genetics function. So you breed them together, and it out pops the things, and there's a hint of mutation as well, so that you can kind of like eventually get the trait you want, and then like make everything have that trait down the line, that kind of thing. Full-on breeding program for these guys, and then there is another gene in them that can randomly switch on. And when two wargs breed that have that gene, it produces a warg. And that's the big guys. The big guys are sterile. You can't breed. Well, like, once you get a warg, you can't breed from it at all. But also, you can ride it into battle. So, it's not that big of a deal. Oh yeah, so over here we have Kevin, the testing husk. How you doing? Kevin looks like he's carrying a shovel. What he's actually carrying is an item called a sap. which only deals bludgeoning damage. Otherwise, meaning it doesn't it doesn't damage your actual health total, but it does take up an internal value that causes you to fall unconscious when it's at least equal to your current health. So, yeah, Kevin doesn't kill you, he just beats you unconscious because he knows no other way. Which is a little entertaining, because we have different states for that. There's a body condition, a soul condition in players, which determines are you on the floor and dead, or are you currently astral projecting, or all sorts of other things. Various Oddities strives to turn Minecraft into a more fleshed out and fully realized RPG, in short. So for instance, we can only see this outline in creative mode. If you're in spectator or survival, you can't, but if I pop into here, we're now in the lucky scale, which is a settlement building, effectively. That's another thing that I've been working on. Over here, outlined again, we have another settlement building. So I go into here, this one doesn't have an actual name, so it's just showing what type it is a nest. Hence the eggs. Created by our kobolds, freeform, by analysing the space of the Minecraft world available and determining that, yes, this is a good area to build a nest. That code took weeks to figure out in the 1.12 version, but at the end of it, once I said the sentence, live on camera, what if I reduced it to a series of cubes? We got it working. It's used sparingly because it is a fairly powerful algorithm, but yeah. A more simple thing that we do here is over here with Sebastian. We added a accessory layer to the foxes, so that whenever the winter season rolls around, which is around about today actually, I think, they have their little like hats and boots and scarves in a random color and configuration that is unique to every fox. Well, there's a lot of combinations, but it's drawn, like, what combination the foxes have is entirely dependent upon their UUID, their unique entity ID. That is used as the seed of an RNG, and the RNG then determines what pieces they have. Yeah. How I keep track of all these different variations of variations? Very simply, it's just a list of booleans, effectively, or a list of integers. So we have a boolean that determines, do we have a hat? And from there, we have another value that determines what color of cosmetics you're using. You notice they all have red boots, red hats, green scarf, green boots, green hat. They're all, so we basically just have a set of booleans that say true or false, I have a hat. True or false, I have a scarf. True or false, I have an actual boots. I can't recall specifically if I added a clarifier to make sure there's at least one accessory, but not a hard deal to do that. And then we just have a random value that says what color. So we generate those since we generate those from the unique entity ID, they are the exact same every single time for each specific entity each year. So honestly, that's very easy. The hard part was just modeling and texturing all of these, but they look very cute. And then we just put that into a render layer and appended it to the Fox renderer. Very straightforward. But that's one of the sillier little things that I added, just because I like little details like this, like how around October skeletons will spawn with pumpkin hats. It's nice to just have something like this. Has absolutely no gameplay benefit whatsoever, but it's cute. Right, I think that is... Oh yeah, over here. I forgot over here. Over here we have some more things to test. So, this is Petrification, which has rendered all of these mobs completely immobile and unable to do anything. That is what's called a visual potion effect, because it is a potion effect that updates an internal value in your living entity data, which players also have, which tells a certain visual to render, a specific additional render layer. Render layer being things like what armor you're wearing, what item you're carrying, like that kind of thing, what helmet you're wearing, that kind of thing as well. Then we also have this one, the Tweety Birds of the Dazed effect, which prevents you from attacking and prevents you from moving, but nonetheless it allows you to do most things. I do love the visuals on this one. This one only works for my pets, but it's a nice effect, and I like it. Very cute. And I can't remember what this one was. Oh yes, the entangled effect. Blump, which is covered in vines, which is effectively a substantial but not complete speed debuff. Kind of needs a little bit of work, if I'm honest. But, you know, looks good enough for the most part. Yeah. Okay, so, working on possession before I talk my way out of doing anything today. And the creeper despawned. There, that's fine. We need another Jimmy. Summon creeper, blah blah blah. Persistence required. Thank you. So we're doing despawn again. And let's actually name him. We don't need to, he's already got persistence required, but you know, it's nice to name your test subjects. Anvil. I could also do this with just the MBT data, but it's kind of a pain. Shit. Who shall one day return, which is a reference that newer viewers of this stream will maybe not understand, but one day Jimmy shall return. God only knows what version of Minecraft I'll be on by that point. But okay, so the breakdown of possession is that we use the possess command. There will be other effects that trigger this later, not right now. We use the possess command whilst looking at a mob. We then are teleported to the position of that mob. Our body is set to still be alive, which means as a player we still are the same entity. Our soul is set to be, I think it's still bound. I can't recall. It might be just still alive or something. But suffice to say, not alive, because alive and your body being alive and your soul being alive means that you're in just normal function, effectively. But as we can see, we are currently in both the... Well, we're looking the same way that Jimmy is looking. So you can see he's following us as we move around. It does feel a little bit like he's not quite doing it accurately, but, you know... Seems close enough. When we look at him, he's looking the direct opposite direction, so good. But he's not currently getting our moving coordinates, so he's not actually moving around, which is what he should be doing. We're just moving around on our own, which is a thing we shouldn't be doing, but is handy for testing. But we also look 100% like Jimmy, so that's good. we grossly resemble Jimmy. And then we can just do depossess to stop doing that. You'll notice there, our camera changed as well. It's shifted slightly up, because we are in fact viewing things at Jimmy's eye level when we are possessing Jimmy, meaning we are literally seeing the world from Jimmy's perspective. But yes, we have some problems here. Originally, we had it that you couldn't do anything, and all of your commands, like your controls, were being transmitted to the server to have the actual mob on the server perform them, but it turned out that added a bunch of latency. Even when we got it working at its best, it was very sluggish, and you want to be playing with as little latency as possible when you're actually dealing with this kind of thing. So, yeah, as we can see, here's all of the chats, the console spam for when Jimmy's being possessed, and nothing is really going on there. Also, hi Lucian and the Ghostlings, how you doing? Ghostlings? Gastlings? What are your fans called? Who knows? But yes, welcome to Lying Figures Out Bugs, which is most of my day today, I guess. Okay, this should be Living Entity Mixin. That's where all that happens. All the ton of stuff that we have going on in here. There is so much mixing done to get this working. We have a lot of aces. They are aces. That doesn't make sense. Lucian v Ghost and your fan base are called aces. Nah, that doesn't follow. At least mine are called Forgetfuls because I'm called Remember Comics. Occasionally, but such is the ravages of my career. Did I mention we also have a bunch of, like, abilities? A ton of abilities. A lot of these are passives, but also a lot of these are things that you can perform and have happen. So I've got actually like 2 of these on my top left there. If I bring them the view screen, here we are. I can activate them. Turn them on or off. Mind me, I don't think I showed off scent. Did I show off scent? Here we go. There's scent. Which lets you figure out where different creatures have been standing for a while and moving around, that kind of thing. Which you can distinguish what creatures by the colour of it. Very handy. And let me see, that should just be that button. There we go. Special keys. Dark vision is a lot more straightforward. It's just perpetual night vision, but it doesn't actually appear in your bar. Which is... Don't know about the rest of them, but I'm called Sir Skellybaits. Well, pleased to meet you, Sir Skellybaits. Okay, so we need to figure out, since we're effectively trying to just spoof that we are riding a particular creature, we are clearly missing a step that's causing the client to not send its motion data to the server. So that's causing it to not actually have any data to work on because all the values should stay at 0 because players are... I feel like I've overused this phrase right now, but players are special snowflakes in Minecraft code. To the extent that it's actually really easy to hack in Minecraft. Because the server takes its motion cues for the player from the client. The client comes up with how you move, and then the server just follows suit. Which is really bad, but also low latency, so fine. Rubber banding is when the server thinks you've done something that's actually impossible and decides to not do anything. But it is... Hoi. Yeah, so somewhere in player entity, we're not actually getting the move strafing, move vertical, move forward, that kind of thing. We're not getting these values to feed to our creeper, so our creeper isn't moving because as far as it knows, you haven't clicked anything. Whereas, clearly, our player is. And boy, am I not 100% certain how to fix that up. But I gotta. And I gotta do it at a reasonably low latency value, or it's gonna be kind of impossible to get into a fight whilst possessing somebody, effectively. Yeah, you can fight mobs. Our old system was okay enough to fight mobs, but fighting other players, even other players who are possessing mobs, it was... You were always at a massive disadvantage in the game, and the gameplay looked really rugged. But oh well. Okay, so yeah, all of that's fine. This all looks good. It's gotta be something in player. Somewhere in player I am missing something that should be getting called when we're actually writing something. That's the problem. So let's see, there's travel, healing bludgeoning damage, climbing walls, collisions. Whether you're undead is dependent upon our code, so you can be hurt by healing potions if you have the right settings. We're petrified. Oh, here's a detail for anyone, any budding modders. Never cancel out of world damage. Never. Don't do it. It is chiefly encountered by players when they fall out of the world in the Nether and such, but it's also used by the /kill command, and if you make any kind of entity somehow invulnerable, even temporarily, to out-of-world damage, you very greatly reduce the capacity of the server and the admins to actually manage the world, which means you can create a situation where there is a ton of entities that will not go away, and that just lags the server to hell. So just a thing to remember. The server can remove entities without having to deal damage. It's called, they just literally remove it from the list of loaded entities. But the /kill command used by admins doesn't call that. It just deals the absolute maximum value possible of out-of-world damage. So yeah, bear that in mind. Okay. We don't... Am I missing something here? Oh, it's in entity mixin, I think. Yeah, there we are. So here's our values. Is being ridden, can passenger steer, get controlling passenger, get riding entity. This is the thing that the player uses to know if it's actually like writing something, and in our case, we want to replace this value with the creature that we're possessing. In our case, currently, Jimmy over at the back here. So let's see what happens when the player actually thinks that it is currently writing an entity. Hopefully. Do I have an is writing in here? I don't think that I do. I don't recall I do. That might be next thing. Is writing in the player, I think, just calls get writing entity does not equal null, so it should work the same way, but by the by, you currently only players can possess only mobs. You can't possess other players. No other mob can possess a player.
Player has joined the game.
It is purely set up to be players controlling mobs, which nonetheless is a very useful function. If you think of the old RPs and such, what tended to happen was that they used a mod called more player models, which allows you to dress up as a mob, no problem. But you're still using your actual values and such, and there are very distinct limitations to that, quite a lot. Like, you frequently can't add specific values into it, so like NBT changes and such to make it look different. In this case, you can just create the entity you want to be and then directly control it, and it behaves exactly as if it was actually more or less itself. You still have some variance because we have to take account of you. If a player is controlling a mob, we expect that the player wants to be able to do things like open doors. Not all mobs can do that. But yeah, being able to actually create a Jimmy entity and control Jimmy, pretty nice. Okay, so now we can't move our head around. We can move it up and down because the Jimmy don't care. And I think we can actually see Jimmy actually moving his head around. Good, good, good. We also, however, can't move, and we can't turn to the left or right. But hey, we've got Jimmy actually listening to some part of us. It's not actually the right part, but you know, it's progress. Jimmy is still not receiving our movement information, so is still not moving, is the problem. So, why is Jimmy not receiving that? Could it be something in the movement input? Mix it. Who knows? Possessed to transmit movement is how we used to do things. It doesn't seem to be relevant now. Mouse helper. Is there something we're doing in here? Literally nothing. Okay. Yeah, this is also old code. There's a lot of code I need to just rip out at some point. Anyways, I'm over time. I'll be back in about 10 minutes after my last break for the night. And of course, you can still hear me because XSplit is a doo-doo butt. But I'm just going to sit here and talk quietly, drinking my tea. Because talking near non-stop for about 3 hours is really bad for your voice. Which is kind of a big deal when it's the thing that actually makes you money. Not even a lot of money, but more than like the vast majority of your income. Welcome back to the final hour of our evening. Once again, I'm starting off in echo, aren't I? There we go. Because tech problems, apparently. Where we are currently attempting to isolate what part of the player entity is not being sufficiently modified for it to try and make our possessed creeper move. Technically, this will still end up being mind control more than possession, the difference being whether you are actively in the creature's space, as it were. But that's the next step, I guess. That, by the way, is what a daub is. It is effectively just... It's a very stupid thing, but people like to cause me harm, so there we are. Okay. So, looking at the player entity, here we have update written, which logically is the part that starts to actually move our things around, and that is called by the clients at the server at tick passenger, which might just not be getting called because because we're spoofing that it's not going to actually note to the player that we're actually nothing is happening, so consequently it's TLDR, the creeper doesn't actually believe it's being ridden, so it's not updating the player as though the player were riding it. In short. Which then might be the next stop, in which case we have to, I think, go into, let's see, let's tick passenger, what does that get? Get passengers, tick. For update entity. Okay. So, for every passenger it identifies, tick the passenger, which sets the passenger entity's position as well as their pitch and rotation. How does that factor into our player? That's the next question. If we look for, let's see, movement, entity mixing, that's what we want. Nope, living entity. That's what travel is. Yes, of course. We're trying to get the move strafing and move forward for the player. Where does that get fed in for our player? Client player entity, tick, update action state, send packet if we're a passenger. Passenger is determined by, do we have a riding entity? But that might somehow not be getting fed through. So, we go into entity, we add is passenger, and we attempt to override that, effectively. Mixin is a very powerful thing that I probably shouldn't have command of, because of the sheer amount of things it lets you do. So, okay, do all that effectively, and just return true. Click. Oh, actually, this wants to be the actual part that tells it to do the thing. Is passenger Z, I believe, is the token that says Boolean at the head, meaning at the start of the thing. And I don't think most of these need to be cancelable, but it just it saves me a headache just saying that ahead of time. Okay. Let's run that, and while that does, I will do some squats. No, I don't know what's going on with this camera today. Very below net. So, yeah. That's what I'm dealing with. Maybe for like 2023, I just create like some kind of wish list for people to just buy me computer parts or something, because I feel like getting 3,000 pounds together is going to be asking a bit much. Right. So. For those of you who don't know, I'm on some medications called weight gain. Which when you weigh slightly over 100 pounds to begin with, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it all ends up pretty much in muscle. So we're doing exercises to try and control that weight gain. And for 800 yips in the chat, you can force me to do 20 squats whilst holding this 2.5 kilogram weight at arm's length. So yeah, here we go. One. 3, 4. There's all of those joints. No joy. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. There we go. Also, I sit at a desk for like very close to 100% of my life. So getting some exercise is just a good idea. At some point. Okay. If arms are more your thing to make me suffer, we do also have curls, which I'm sure Dusty's about to redeem. Having said down. But okay, right. We're now overriding player entity, so it should automatically think that it is a passenger. Let's find out. Okay, we have a change. Firstly, we're facing the wrong direction, and our camera is stuck, and we're still not actually moving. Okay. So that just made things worse. Is what I'm seeing. So let's see. Yeah, right. Hang on, let me just. I can fix that in a hot second here. Just set to mute on there. Good. Was I echoing on the overhead? Out of curiosity. Was there echo there? No one mentioned there was, so I presume there wasn't. Which would be really heckin' weird, but... When I was doing squats, was I echoing? I'm guessing I wasn't, but who knows? Pretty much as soon as I got up, I was echoing? Okay, noted. Weirdness. Okay. So there are other methods involved here. I believe there's a secondary function to check if a given creature is a passenger. So let's see. Get passengers, this passenger, there you are, is passenger. Where is that used? Position rider, okay, that's part of entity. Boats as well. Minecarts. Horses use it in OpenGI. Llamas use it in Update Passenger. Let's override that and see if that helps us. It'll want to be more or less exactly what that says. For this. Very strange bugs today, alright. Yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna get basically this code and just check if entity is the entity. There. So if the creature we're checking is currently our possessor, then do other things. Let's see how much this changes. If you're in constellation, you're having trouble with doing your nail push and learn your frustrations. That is fair. I actually need to redo my nails. My nails, I did my nails like 5 days ago, and they got very chipped, and I wanted to look nice for Christmas and whatnot, so I'll be redoing mine in the fairly near future. What have we got? In what manner have we changed things? Okay, we still can't really move, and we're also still very much not actually transmitting. Okay. Why? Get riding entity is... This just returns an entity, namely the thing that we are possessing currently. So we know that we are possessing something. Because we're doing all that. So this should be fine. So let's go... Oh, hang on, this is only happening for players. Whereas this should be checking for the creeper. So... we probably want to change this around a little bit. So let's see, living entity and living data. Is being possessed, and get possessor. There. Just refactor that. So, yep. So if entity get type not player and instance of living entity. Okay. And should now only work on things that aren't players, which again cannot be possessed. It would be an interesting feature, I'm not gonna lie. It would be fun and potentially quite useful in certain situations, such as when your mate needs to go AFK and such. You can just control them yourself to take them home. But if we possess somebody, then by definition we are overriding all of their controls. We're the ones that decide where they look, what they do, what happens to all of their items, that kind of thing. And that is a really bad situation to be on the receiving end of. And it'll always be a situation of newer players in a given run are always going to be at the mercy of the players who've been like there for much longer, because they'll have more access to the capacity to actually do possession. So at that point, we're just creating a very unsavory environment. It's one thing to be able to add like powerful spells and whatnot, but what do you do against possession? You can't just not be in the area. Like, you could hide, but then divination also exists. It's like, it's better to just not create situations where you can completely destroy a player's actual capacity to do anything. Okay. Okay, well, our motion up and down is now a lot smoother. We're not getting any, like, error. We're not getting any, like, bouncing there. That's good. But we're also not actually moving. Okay. It's gotta be something here in the clients, because otherwise we'd be seeing it elsewhere. So let's see. Passenger is riding horse. Okay. Is apparently in here. Where's that called? Client player entity living tick. Okay. Is spectator. Jump is flying. Yep, all that stuff is sprinting. not seeing a whole ton here that would lead me to believe that other things are happening. We'll get to actually jumping stuff later on. Okay, can auto jump. Is not a passenger. Get your. Is passenger. No. Is passenger. Send the rotation and the movements as part of tick. That's clearly the thing that we're after, isn't it? So what's going wrong? Move vehicle packet doesn't have any. It doesn't seem to have any problems there that could cause issues here. Input packet. Is there anything that happens when this goes? Not that I can see. But okay, so it's part of the tick in client player entity. The is passenger is still just checking that. Okay. So what's going wrong here? Do we have client player entity here? We do not appear to have that, but okay, let's take a look at that. Let's mix into the tick real quick. Okay, and that wants to be inject method. So we want to check if we're currently a passenger. So let's see, client player entity player equals client player entity object. This code is injected into the actual class for client player entities, so it technically is when it's running this, even though we're not actually one. So yeah. So if we're a passenger, then we can detect that. I wonder if it's just because a lot of this stuff is not an entity mix-in client. That could be it. But if we don't see the chat spammed with client as passenger, we know where it's going wrong. The client doesn't think it's the passenger, so it's not sending the packets. And that will resolve our little mystery as to why our motion isn't getting carried forth. Oh, look at all that. All of that, all of those different abilities. Many of them customizable with MBT as well. Oh, love it. Sunburn is a fun one. That basically makes you burn in sunlight. I think there's also one that's caused by like when you're in when you're for instance in water, but you're not actually like sensitive to water. You're like Blaze. Blaze take damage from water. We have an ability for that in here somewhere, I think. Pretty sure. I'm not quite sure what I called it off the top of my head. Light sensitivity, I think is another one. States immunity, paralysis, resistance, rend. Rend is fun. If anybody ever played Witchery back in the day, the werewolves, like the Wolfman form, could like severely damage one armor or knock it off if it was immune to damage. That's what the rend ability is. It might honestly just be sunburn. I don't remember. Anyways. Love seeing how passionate you are about the stuff you create. I'm a massive nerd. And I've played D&D for more than half my life. So, yeah. Anyways, let's see. Do we get the client's player entity mix-in reporting to us here? That's what we're looking for. Our survey says no, we don't. Okay, so the client player does not know that that is happening, as near as we can tell. Let's go to the living entity mix-in real quick and just turn off those sysouts so we can actually check.
A new challenger approaches.
So let's see, system.out line, taking client player entity. So if this gets called at all, which I've just realized it isn't because we didn't add it to our list in here, that probably would help. There. You have to register everything that you have over here. It's kind of a pain. But, yeah. Yeah, Rend was a lovely ability. Like, Witchery back in the day of like 1.7, I think it was, 1.7.10, Witchery has MNF basically vanished off the face of the earth at that point. Which is that's a shame because Witchery was just like on the cusp of doing some really fascinating stuff. But Witchery had a long-standing habit of, instead of just making things with bigger numbers, as is extremely common and obviously very straightforward to do with mods, Witchery made things that were just so slightly to the left. Like a lateral move rather than just increasing power exponentially, which was great because it gave you much more diverse kind of situations. The bark belt was like the most commonly used thing, which was if you it built up charge as long as you were on grass, and as long as you had a charge, the next attack did nothing. Basically nothing could hurt you, but you only had like 5 charges max, I think it was. It was so good because it meant that having big numbers no longer mattered. You needed to be dealing numbers fast enough, and that's a very different thing to do. It also meant that your invulnerability was now dependent upon your environment because it took time to charge and you had to be on grass. Okay, that is not running, is what I'm seeing here, despite the fact we definitely just added it to our mix and list. Okay. Why not? Why not run? Did I misname it or something? Tick should be fine, yeah. Is it literally just because I'm not calling the right thing? Should I be calling player entity? Should I be calling entity, for that matter? It might just go all the way down. Okay, we can do that. Entity mixing client. Let's go for that. Let's see, it's glowing. There's Tick right there. So, we want to ask that. At this point, we absolutely should be a client player because we're literally referencing that, which is client player entity. And where's client player entity? There you are. We don't need that. Because that's functioning what we're going. Yeah, and then like the Wolfmen were like heavily dependent upon dealing damage. There was always the entertaining thing though of fighting somebody at night as a Wolfman, because if you were powerful enough, you could give people lycanthropy by hurting them, and that meant that when someone starts lycanthropy, they involuntarily turn into a small wolf under like the moon. So you would fight somebody who wasn't a werewolf whilst you were a wolfman, you would knock off their armor or like sufficiently wreck it to deal enough damage, the damage condition would trip, they would be given lycanthropy, they would turn into a small wolf, and all of their armor and items would be dropped. Or all of their worn armor and held items, which then made them a much easier target. So it then became a thing of, okay, you can't fight these guys in melee because you'll get hecked up pretty quickly, so you want to fight them in range. Okay. Like, I loved that. MNF had such a wonderful lateral view of how combat should be done in Minecraft. And Minecraft as a rule has extremely boring combat. That is very much about just making big numbers effectively. But I love it when mods and such make it more interesting than that. Like, one of the problem I think in just filming quite recently of just like, okay, we need to have 2 characters fight on camera. How do we make it not just look like a slap fight for the umpteenth time? And it's like, making Minecraft combat look good on camera is actually very difficult. It's like how Minecraft characters have very little expression on camera because it's just a flat texture that doesn't move. So over time, people who have played Minecraft for long enough and made videos in Minecraft for long enough have developed a thing called head bobbling and such, A lot of people have like different names for it because everyone came up with it individually. But it was just a matter of when you are talking, you need to move your head so that it looks like you're actually talking. Because of course you don't actually have a jaw, you don't have facial expression, you don't have gestures for the most part. You can left click and that's about it. But of course nobody wants to be punching around randomly, because that's all a left click does most of the time. And it's just, it adds that extra detail that tells the player who is talking and what they're talking about. Also makes it way easier in editing because you can line up the audio with the head bubbles if you're lucky. And like a lot of mods have tried to add more expression, but it tends to be kind of clunky to use like mid-conversation. And every mod has their own thing, so it's just like, okay, what happened there? Something went wrong in our mixin client. Okay. Ah, we didn't check if player equals null, because we apparently do here. See what I mean about silly, absurd little errors happening? Well, there it is. If entity does not equal player, so that's just checking the actual current entity. Okay. There. I like the expression wheels that some mod packs have been including, but it's kind of difficult to time them correctly. Yeah, and if you've got like first-person camera angles, you can't use them at all as well. But the hardest part is just that every mod adds their own ones, and they're controlled in their own ways, and that tends to cause a bit of a disconnect every time you make a new mod pack, because people have to learn how to do them. And quite frequently you have to like stop moving your camera around, so you're talking, and then you have to like stop moving, open the wheel, click the thing to do the animation and such, and then it's like, yes, we're talking again. So it would be a bit like if I was giving a really big like speech, and then I just continued after that weird pause. It's a problem that I don't think Minecraft is necessarily going to get better than head bobbling with. Unfortunately. But combat, we can make it look a lot better. But it starts by making combat more diverse. Because right now it is mostly, we have sword, we have bow. Eventually everybody's getting to a slap fight, or everyone's retreating to the opposite side of the room. Okay, we're not seeing his passenger in here, so there's our problem, quite possibly. Because we should be seeing that be spammed out if we were saying that. We also aren't seeing ticking client player entity, which is maybe another problem I should look at. This is happening at the tail as well, so let me have a secondary function here. At the head. Seeing all the stuff you've been working on is making me really want to get back into roleplay. Fun fact, I realized when I started making this possession ability that it would be possible, nay, should be possible, if I can manage it, to play Minecraft entirely as a mob. So, for instance, a cow, a pig, a sheep, and a villager fight the Ender Dragon. If I can manage it, that I think will be the absolute zenith of the possession abilities development. And that's so entertaining as an idea. Particularly because it's actually, like, if you're playing a villager, the capacity to open up your trading window is still there. Kind of like the morph mod, but better. Like the morph mod, but better. Because you'd still have access to being able to shear the sheep, to being able to trade with the villager, to being able to milk the cow. These aren't things we have to add. They're just there because you're actually an entity, and you're actually being like, you're actually controlling the entity moving around. That kind of thing. Pretty cool. It's not something we have to build capacity for, because any mod that adds a living entity again is going to be something you can possess, and all of its functions will work just fine. Just most of its AI will be turned off for the most part. Okay. At the head, entity, and we want to check if player equals entity, or does not, then that. And we'll mark that as client player entity, because why not? So if the entity being ticked is us, then check this. Hopefully that works. Hopefully. Who knows? Yeah, so like, what's an example? There's the chicken mods, and the various resource animal mods. You could spawn one of those, possess them, and they would still work. They would still be able to spit out whatever resources they're supposed to make. So just like, yeah. That'd be fascinating. It's like players as resources, effectively. It's like you could make like teams of it on a server. Like you could have the wolf side, and then you could have the fox side, and it's just like everybody on one side is foxes, everyone on the other side is wolves. When your wolf or your fox dies, then you can't get a new one. That kind of thing. Okay, ticking non-player entity, but I'm not actually seeing player entity. Interesting. Would this theoretically work with any modded creature? Yes. Completely agnostic. It doesn't care. Like, nothing in this code specifies that it has to be a various oddities creature or a vanilla creature. It is any mob. So not things like boats or minecarts or hidden entities, but most mobs, most creatures that you encounter, you can absolutely do this to. Okay, why are we not seeing here? Client player entity ticks. It has a tick function right there. So why are we not seeing tick happen? That's my curiosity here. Let me run a check through the Forge devs here. The Forge Discord has a bot that allows you to look up in their deobfuscation map all of the stuff that you need to actually make things run. So if I check, there's going to be a lot of answers, but yeah, let's begin. If I check if there's a specific caller for tick in client's player entity, because we need to get to the point where this packet gets sent, and clearly it's not being. But we also need to know that it's actually doing anything. While we're here, let's go to entity, get our isPassenger function right there, and copy that over to here. Okay, sound engine, memory, ticket manager, particle, map data, recipe book, raid manager. Oh boy, how many pages here? 10. Movement controller, goal selector, stats component, point of interest manager, entity senses, brain task, in-game GUI, text field widget, sensor, server chunk provider, fluid, entity. Just exactly as I've described it up here. Dragon fight manager, cooldown tracker, tutorial, first person renderer, server tick list, player inventory, chunk manager, jump controller, gossip manager, game renderer, channel manager, sound source, tracked entity, keyboard listener, light engine, world light manager. This is why you make things a bit more specific with your names and not just call everything tick. Particle manager, player interaction manager, fluid state, food stats, biome, sound handler, fire block, world border, sound handler, brain, effect instance, goals, server world, light texture, player list, Minecraft, look controller, border info, realm screen, raid manager, abstract block state, raid, abstract spawner, network manager, finds tree step, is apparently a thing. Network system player controller, iTickable, world renderer, and path navigator. Oof. Okay, so as near as I can tell, it is the correct thing. Okay. Let's get the things. So our writing entity, let's also put that into entity mix in client. Yep, it should be synchronized with the client from the server, so it should stay the same. One way or the other here. dream is to one day see various oddities as a mod pack staple that everyone uses like NEI. Oh, that would be lovely. That'd be so much fun. The sheer variety it allows for right now is just amazing, and I haven't even started re-adding the oddities yet. The titular oddities are the mobs. We mostly only have goblins and kobolds right now. Okay. Here we are. And we're still not doing anything. Interesting. Okay, why? Why is this not running? That's my question. Why does this one run, as near as I can tell, but the other one doesn't? Why does the client not tick? Where does the client player's tick get called? Is that part of Minecraft, I wonder? Client world update entity. Instance of, well, not an instance of a player entity, then do that. Otherwise, do all of that. Basically just obey the server for the most part. And then it does all of these things. Okay. That's where it gets called, right there. If it's added to chunk or as a spectator. Interesting combination things though. Yeah. This is a weird one. Because by all rights, this should be running. We should see the player in here. So why don't we? Player does not equal entity. Let's get a bit more detail out of this. Namely, let's get the name of it. Hopefully, that means we actually see something. This, by the way, is, when you're working with an established system, this is a lot of the time you spend. Just sticking breakpoints and sysouts into things to try and diagnose what's going on, through pretty much sheer trial and error, especially when the documentation is not great. Let's see, what is like my favorite ability in this big long list? There are so many. Oh, hurt by environment. That's the one that makes you vulnerable to water, among other things. Yeah. So let's see. You can be immune. You can be hurt by water. You can be hurt by hot environments. You can be hurt by cold environments. You can be hurt by just the absence of water, I think. Just like, fun stuff. So you can play Blaze if you like. Okay. What entities are being ticked client side? Ticking entity client side, dev. Dev is being ticked client side. Okay. We also have Sebastian, Jeremy Bentham, Kieran Archfey. We have Kevin, we have Jimmy. I have a ton of stuff here, but the dev does show up. That's the client player, right there. So why do we not see that? Okay. Let's see. If ant type not that, then we know it should be that. That should be the only player that we are taking over here, but just on the off chance, we want to check. Well, let's just grab that. Let's just check every client player instance. There. Yeah, like storytelling, RP, DMing, programming. This is the wonderful combination of all my fixations. So. There was, I want to say Slimesicle was involved recently with somebody who's making a big RP mod that has like create and stuff on it, and it looked grand, but the amount of effort they had to put into it just to get it to work, like I would much love to have effectively a one-stop shop for it. So various oddities will add the bulk of things that you need to make a good RP world run, but then you've got things like various equipment that adds new items, so the combat gets more diverse, everything starts to like run a bit better, that sort of thing. What happened there? Server player tick? Wait, what? Was I in the wrong thing? No, I'm in entity mixing client. Server player entity cannot be cast to client player entity. How is that even possible? Happened in the tick head, right here. That's interesting. This shouldn't even exist on the server side. That's I guess because we were booting. I guess. Okay. That is fascinating. I guess we were booting. I guess because we were booting an offline world rather than a server world. That's interesting. Okay. Well, I guess for this exact moment we only need player entity, so I guess we'll just use player entity. Which is a bit more agnostic. So what we're expecting to see is ticking client player entity div, and then if the client in fact believes that we are a passenger and should therefore be sending us data, then it should also say player is possessing. But yeah, let's see what we get. I think Kieran Dave's been working on some stuff with all the mods devs regarding this. Dave has to be like my number one hype man. I swear, some days. Okay, ticking client player entity dev, client is passenger, despite the fact that I'm not currently on a thing. And now we are no longer reading as a passenger. Okay. If I possess Jimmy, that starts up again. Okay. Does that then mean that our data is being transmitted? We know that part is working now. Good. So what is going on with our packets? Go back to our client player entity. And check the calls for his passenger down here. Send packet, input packets, move strafing, move forward, jump, and sneak. Okay. We want to call the process packet command of C input packet. Or rather, we want to check whenever that is called. Oh boy. Let me just grab the MCP for that. It's just easier than trying to figure out what it should be typoed there as. Okay, so we are going to want to shadow some variables here so we can just see them. So let's say strafe speed and forward speed, shadow those, which gives us access to them in this class that does not have them natively. Also, these are private, so we wouldn't be able to access them otherwise. Again, mixin probably more powerful than I should be allowed access to. Nope, there's no data in here. What else is happening? Okay, fine with me. And I'm presuming that gets called server side because it's the client sending it. Okay, and do we still have the... No, we don't. Okay. So whenever we send a packet that says we're moving, we should see that logged in our console now. Hopefully. The client registers that we are a passenger, so it should be sending those packets, and then if there is a problem when those packets are being processed, then that's our next stop for finding out what's going wrong here. This has been a 2-hour guide on how debugging is done in complex systems that are very poorly documented and work about as well as an AZ-free switch in a RBMK nuclear reactor. There's a reference. I'm surprised I spun off the top of my head. If you didn't know, that was the button that made Chernobyl explode. Okay. Nope. I am not seeing that at all. Okay. Well, that is a thing that I need to dig out then, because clearly our client should believe that we're a passenger, so it should be sending these. Is our move strafing value not being conveyed properly? Update entity action state. If we're the current view entity, then should put it there. Okay. I feel like that's a thing I'm overriding somewhere. Nope, that comes from living entity. Update action state. Potion effects, living tick, base tick, undead. Nope, not messing with that at all. Well, that unfortunately is all I have time for today. I hope everybody's enjoyed nonetheless. This has been a very debuggy kind of stream, but we also got like a decent chunk of wheelchairs working again. Hurrah! That will probably be out for Christmas. Look out for that on CurseForge. I will post a link to that in Modding in Bedmom when it happens. Otherwise, my next stream is on Thursday with the World of Madness crew, playing either Among Us or more Sea of Thieves, and then on the Friday, I believe that's when Christmas Eve is. Am I correct in that assumption? Let's find out. Yes, I am. Okay, on Friday from 7 PM, I'll be multi-streaming some Dead Space with Nin, because we happened to pause that last time we were playing it in a nice snowy environment, so it seems perfectly appropriate for a Nightmare Before Christmas. Followed at about 10:30 by our annual viewing of A Christmas Carol starring Sir Patrick Stewart, which to me is the quintessential version, so just in time that should finish for the crossing of midnight and the entry of Christmas Day. And then I will not be streaming this Saturday because that is Christmas Day, and it's nice to take a day off once every 5 years. But we'll be back on Tuesday for more of this. Otherwise, I hope you've all enjoyed. Actually, will I be back on Tuesday? Yes, I will be back on Tuesday for this. Good. For more working out what's going on. Otherwise, any videos I make are review.com/remembercomic. There should be one this week. And everything I do is powered by you at patreon.com/lying. that's all I got for tonight. Hope you've enjoyed. I'll catch you all as ever next time.